Oshi No Ko chapter 125 definitely accomplishes its goal of giving us more to the Ichigo and Miyako story, while also touching on some of the harsh realities that come from working in the entertainment industry, in particular as a woman, and beginning to age out of the entertainment industry that values youth and beauty, and out of the dating marketplace that actually add more layers to both Ichigo and Miyako's characters that should make you go back to the first few episodes of the series and rewatch them, because you have a better understanding of how it is that we got to the events of chapter 125 of the series. So with my initial thoughts out of the way, let's back things up a bit and let's dive into the recap portion of the review before we unpack things a little further. And we have a lot to go over because this is yet another chapter that really shows some of the harsh realities of being in entertainment, especially if you're a woman. So the chapter opens up with Ichigo realizing he's in the same bar as Miyako and immediately turns around to leave. However, not want to be outdone, Miyako chases after him, and that's where we start seeing some of her internal monologue where she says that Tokyo is a small world unto itself. And just before we go fully into the flashback, we see Miyako throw her shoe to hit Ichigo over the head, and once he falls down, she flops on top of him and looks like she's about to start going into a rage as she begins to start telling him to think about how she felt after all these years after he left her, and she calls him an idiot for giving up on the promise that was made all those years ago, which we know is looping back to episode 1 of the series where we see Ai get killed when they're on the precipice of filming their first dome show, and for the time being it felt as if their collective dream died alongside Ai. That's when we shift gears to the flashback in a moment well placed to serve to build as a crescendo near the end of the chapter with that moment between Miyako and Ichigo. We see from her perspective as a young college student who goes to the big city Tokyo for the first time, and how much of her view is blinded by the bright lights, and we see that the big city magic has captured her in a big way. For her, this felt like a place where she belonged, and we see from her perspective of how she treated the whole atmosphere and the experience like it was a game. She was young, she was beautiful, and she used it to play on easy mode for a time, racking up experience points and leveling up, as she put it. But the manga even gave her a status bar to show her statistics, and she refers to the guys that she got to simp on her at nightclubs and buying her expensive drinks, and as she worked her way up through the entertainment ladder as being small enemies that she was defeating. She referred to it as leveling up, getting work done on her face and using some cosmetics like makeup to enhance her beauty and stay competitive with the other women her age and younger in the marketplace. And we start seeing the pressure to try and stay young and beautiful on Miyako, but we also see the downsides to her getting access to so many men of higher earning status and money. She sees the guys at her college who are interested in her as being non-options, boring to even talk to, with her being so focused on her cell phone when she's talking to one of those rich guys on the phone who could provide for a better and a more exciting experience. And she's looking down on the guy that's trying to talk to her in the classroom and other guys who would have been viable options for her had she not have experienced a life of luxury that these wealthier men provided. We see her making the mistake of thinking that because she's been dealing with these men of higher status that she's only focused in on them, and we see her holding a knife as she continues to rack up the experience points by running through wealthier men who she considers to be stronger enemies and gaining more experience points. We see her change her occupation and get more access. She says that her growing stronger through experiences made her acknowledged by strong people in Tokyo, and she continued to level up in the process. And eventually we see her cashing in on her youth and beauty by being a model and enjoying the peak of her success as a model before we transition to the harsh reality. She says even that will come to an end someday. She wasn't the only cute girl in Tokyo. There were several beautiful women in Tokyo was a commonplace, and each day there was a younger version of herself that was stepping out there each day, which led to her opportunities drying up. And as each day passed and time went on and she graduated college, the number of rich CEOs who were looking to spend the evening with her, wine and dine her, take her to parties, make connections with her, it all dried up. We see her coping with the situation, saying that all those men, they were just cheaters, likely because she saw it working in the industry. Those wealthy men who she was enjoying the company of likely had wives and girlfriends. But we see now that she's begun to miss the attention as a Minato girl, basically a young woman who spends her time going into wealthy neighborhoods, and she even stooped to introducing those wealthy guys to younger women just so she could stay around and stay relevant in a nightlife situation. And we see her continue to descend when she gets asked to be a mistress, and that's where the reality hits. She's not even an option for some of these men like she was when she was younger. She's just the woman on the side now. The woman who the guy comes to after he deals with the wife and the girlfriend and the younger girls that these men are fooling around with, she's in the same position that some of these actresses get in, where because of how cruel entertainment is, their value as an actress actually goes down, even though their talent might have actually increased, because once they get to a certain age, they're not viewed as being as valuable. And they always go for the younger and hotter actress, even though said younger and hotter actress might not be as good as the older actress. We see her reflect on the fact that these wealthy men, they sniff out women who are losing their place in the entertainment and the dating market for higher earning men, and they try to exploit them by playing on their insecurities until they eventually replace them. However, just when it looks like she's about to hit full rock bottom, that's when Ichigo shows up, and Ichigo flat out asks her, how much longer are you going to try and do the nightlife thing? And he tells her to come work for him, and we see how she went from being hesitant to slowly getting accustomed to the role of working behind the scenes, and seeing how Ai was performing was ultimately what made her accept seeing the lights from behind someone who was in the spotlight was just as rewarding as actively chasing the position of the spotlight for you yourself to stand in, likely because of that hard work that goes to reaching that point. What doesn't get talked about enough is the fact that whatever person, whether they be an athlete or a celebrity, an artist, an influencer, they're merely the face, but there's a whole group of people who are supporting them from behind the scenes. People like Miyako and Ichigo who bask in the celebrations that come from reaching the milestones because it's a team effort. Bikomochi's wins, they weren't just wins solely off of Ai. They were also wins for people like Ichigo and Miyako. We end the flashback by seeing Miyako and Ichigo standing in an empty dome where they speak of the dream of wanting to fill the dome with glow sticks for the idol group that they're managing, Bikomochi, which leads to her breaking down into tears, demanding why Ichigo gave up on that dream, basically leaving her alone. And given the substance of the flashback, we can see why that hit her so hard. To a certain degree, albeit it's for different reasons, Ichigo leaving her was no different than the wealthy man of status who eventually stopped seeing her as she began to age and left her on her own. And we see her telling Ichigo basically that their dream mattered. And I think this is a very important scene for the two of them because it gives Ichigo the chance to show her that he's not like these other men. He hasn't forgotten about their dream. And we can start to see these two start to come to a more common ground now. However, this was needed for a character because it continues to show that the decisions that you make, they affect those around you. And with someone like her who has made some decisions in the past that might not have been the smartest decisions, when you make yourself valuable and give so much of yourself to support someone else's dream to the point that their dream becomes your dream because of how invested in it you are, it makes the pain that she's experiencing hit that much harder. And I love that we're seeing this because it continues the trend of what we see with the series by showing the ugly side of the entertainment industry from people like Ai, who are juggling their personal life and their professional life, and Ai dying at the hands of a stalker, to people like Akane dealing with the suicidal thoughts that came from her reading all the comments online, to people like Mimcho trying to hide their age to stay relevant in the entertainment industry because of what she's doing for her age. It will eventually become an issue if people knew the truth, and people like Miyako who are in the entertainment industry walked a similar path but a different path, and how everything still comes to a head for people in her position. Would it have been easier if she would have chose one of those college guys that she got bored with and just went after like a normal set of relationships in life, who those guys might have had the potential to grow into the wealthy men that she was getting attention from? Absolutely. But she chose to chase the bright lights, the big city lifestyle. She tried to go into entertainment. She tried to cash in on her youth and beauty, and she rode the highs and the lows of it. But when she was offered an out by working for Ichigo, we see just how much she got crushed by Ichigo's sudden disappearance following Ai's death. It's going to be curious to see how much Ichigo reveals to her moving forward, because after this flashback, it feels like she should be told the truth about Ai and what it is that she is in the dark about when it comes to Ichigo and Aqua's plan, if for no other reason for her to get closure. After reading the chapter, I've gone from already enjoying Miyako's character to loving the character even more, because this chapter made her more human and it added more layers to her character. That being said, I'm so curious to know what you guys think about her character after this chapter.